All right, hello everyone. This is Neil Curtis from Rising Sun Commerce. Neil, thanks very much for taking the time to join us today. It's really good to see you.
Yep, you too, Sam.
And where are you calling in from today?
So I'm in the UK, a city called Hull, which is in Yorkshire, which is kind of northeast in the UK, if people know the area or not.
Sounds pleasant. It sounds like you're now working remotely from home, a little bit outside of Britain there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm working from home now in this office, but our team is based either, we've got a few people in the UK and then a few people in Japan. That's where we're based, and we'll probably get into why that is later on in the conversation.
Yes, definitely. We'll certainly get into that because you guys have a really kind of unique approach to the Amazon services space, and really it's been a cool project to work with you on this for so long. I think it's been a couple of years now, and I even know your former partner in the business going way back. We'll maybe get into that a little bit too, but first I wanted to address something, Neil. I learned something about you today. You have a PhD in bioengineering.
Yeah, that's right. And in a past life.
That is that's certainly a different life. I would love to hear just a little bit, Neil, about how that journey from biomedical engineering to now Amazon, which is a really interesting transition. Do you mind filling us in?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so yes, in my early life, well, I wasn't that great academically at school, but I managed to get into university quite luckily in a medical engineering degree, which is basically mechanical engineering with anatomy thrown into it. And then
that's really easy for a guy not good at school.
Yeah, well, it was lucky that it was a brand new course at this university, and the grades to get into this degree were normally a lot higher than what I got, but they were looking for people for the first ever year, so I luckily got into it. But then that kind of suited me better, I think. I think the school environment didn't suit me that well, but being a bit freer in a university environment was a bit better for me, so I did quite well there. And then I think it was my brother did a PhD as well, so I felt that was the route you took. I didn't really, just kind of followed. Mm-hmm. So I did well enough at university, and then I managed to get a PhD position down on the south coast of England doing bioengineering, which is basically the same thing. And basically what I was looking at was joint replacements, if you get a joint replacement.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the design. That's where the mechanics comes into it, the design of these components, how they function and load, why some fail quickly or why some last for years. And I was doing a mixture of stuff in the labs, testing and computer modeling of these things. So that was it. And then then I got a research position at the university in Hull, which is why I moved to Hull. Just doing more research into sort of looking at bone and bone remodeling and computer models of bone and how it remodels into stresses and strains. But I always, even during my PhD and that, I was always doing stuff on the background at home because I always wanted to make money online. I thought there must be a way to make money online. And
you had the entrepreneurial spirit that
I think so. No, I think I fell for some scam and bought a turnkey e-commerce website that was fake, and but I didn't spend very much money, and buying and selling on eBay, and then I got into making affiliate websites, so learning how to rank content in Google and drive traffic to these niche websites, and then basically promoting other people's products on Amazon and getting the commission or things, and that's how I made my first money. And I was making a little bit of money off these. I must have made about 10 or 15 of these niche sites and different topics. And that's when I left the university and decided to do that full time. And then when I was doing that, I listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of blogs about entrepreneurship and making money online. And then that's when I got introduced to selling on Amazon, which is how I got into the Amazon space.
And this is circa what year?
This is 15 plus years ago.
Very early. UK and for the international
UK, and that's when it was only the UK. I think it was France, Italy, Spain, and Germany, and that was it in Europe. But so basically, looked through Amazon, found some products I wanted to do, started a brand. It was called Kid Transit. It still exists, but it doesn't do anything. And basically got stuff branded in China, shipped across, and I sold my own stuff and built my own brand. I think and I expanded that to Europe and then into Japan, which is how we'll go on to Japan in a minute. But I think at its peak, maybe it got to about £30,000 a month kind of range. So okay, not huge, but okay. But it was just myself, and I kept running into cash flow problems and running out of inventory because all my cash was tied up in stock that was in the middle of the ocean somewhere. And I kept getting the ranks, running out of inventory, dropping down, spending a fortune on ads to push up again. Sales take off, you run out of stock, and it was kind of a cycle, and I wasn't really making much money doing that.
Which is a of many sellers, right?
Exactly.
Every day, yeah, no doubt.
But it was good because obviously I learned to my own money the problems and the issues, and then but yeah, so I did that, and there must have been another podcast I heard someone talking about Amazon Japan, and that's when I expanded my range of products into Japan, and that's when I met who was going to be my co-founder of the agency, John Kant. We were working out of a co-working space in Hull, and he'd been living in Japan for 10 years, and he'd just come back to the UK. So I chatted to him about he had a Japanese wife, so they basically helped me translate all my listings, helped me with the shipping and customs, get my stuff into Japan. And it went really well because at the time, it's a lot different now, but at the time, 10 years ago, whenever it was, when I was in Japan, the competition was very weak, and I got to the bestseller rank quite quick. But again, I kept running out of stock, and it was the same cycle. But over the next couple of years, myself and John, we helped a couple of other brands get into Japan because it's obviously quite a niche thing. Yes. We helped them translate their listings and help them with, freight forwarders and shipping and customs and things. So myself and John thought, you know what, why don't we? I'm struggling with my Kid Transit brand. It's always a cash flow problems. I'm going to have to get a massive loan if I'm going to do this properly, or investment, or why don't we start an agency and help other people sell their products into Japan and really niche down. So that's what we did. And I think that was about 9 years ago when we founded Rising Sun Commerce, and it's been a slow progress ever since.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rising Sun gives away a little bit of the approach. Obviously very Japan centric. So maybe talk just a little bit, Neil. I think you do sell in other marketplaces as well, but specifically help folks getting into Japan. Can you just give us kind of a lay of the land of who you work with, what services you provide, kind of that ideal customer persona?
Yeah. So we're just on Amazon. It's just in Japan, like you said. So basically, our main thing is we make sure your listings, we do the whole listing setup for you. So normally, the client would give us access to their account, the right permissions, and we'll do all the work. We'll set the listings up, Japanese, do all images, A+, brand story, store page. We just do everything, get the listings as good as possible, all the keyword research, etc. So we do all that, make sure that's as good as possible. And then and that can just be a standalone thing. So if people just want that, it's just, how many products, here's a quote, and we'll do it for you. Or then the next stage is we do the account management. We basically just do the general admin of your account, make sure your listings are always active. If there's problems, we fix it. Customer support, because it has to be in Japanese, and basically just, account health and just all the general account stuff. And then obviously the Amazon advertising, and we do all of that. And, understand what the goals and strategies are, set up the campaigns, manage the campaigns, and do a lot of reporting, which is obviously how we know each other. And I think it's more than 2 years ago. I think it's a long time. It was before all of your new look.
Oh yeah, you're one of our OGs. You're one of you. It's been.
We were just doing it on spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, reports. It was taking us forever to pull all the reports for our clients. So we teamed up with you, and I think you were just pulling all of the data across and then organizing it so it could be presented nicely on Google's, whatever you call it.
We're using Google Data Studio now.
That's right. Yeah. So that's how we got going, and then so that's it. So now we're doing the nice reporting for all of our clients, and we give them access to your reports, and then we do monthly screen shares, and I talk through. I still do a lot of the work, so I talk through, what we've done this month, how things are going, how the KPIs are, what we're going to do next month, etc., etc. Yeah. So we're an Amazon Japan agency, so we only advertise ourselves as only Amazon Japan. But if we have clients and they want us to manage the other marketplaces, then we do that. So we've had clients in the past. We've only got one now where we're managing their US, their UK, Australia, and I can't remember another one. And in Japan, so yeah, 4 markets for them. And but we always start with Japan. So it's always, if someone comes to us and says, "Oh, can you manage our UK account?" We're kind of going, "Oh, no, no, it's not really our area." But if we're working with them in Japan and it's going well, then we do move
no
on.
doubt.
So it's quite a hard decision, because obviously you're turning down work sometimes, and you think, should we do other things? But they know, let's just focus on our niche. We've got Japanese staff, so we've got native Japanese staff in Japan, and obviously their expertise is Japan and our expertise. So if we only look at Japan, obviously we know everything about Amazon Japan, all the latest news, all the updates, how it works, the market. So we thought, let's just focus. But we had, myself and John, we had lots of discussions about, should we? Because obviously we're quite niche, and obviously there's a whole world out there, especially the US, that's enormous. And then, but we thought, no, we'll just focus on Japan. And now it's, and then I think I've talked to you about this. It's quite a lot of the brands we work with, they don't have any brand awareness in Japan, so they're coming to Japan fresh.
Pretty cold,
And we've had to learn that. At the start, we just work with anyone, it's fine, because we didn't really know any different. And at the start it was okay, but now it's quite hard to grow a lot just only on Amazon when you've got no branded search at all, because basically it's just a dogfight for the keywords. And we've tried to force brand awareness on Japan, and you can do all the DSP and all the things that we targeting, but it's quite hard to, especially a lot of the brands we work with are higher priced, and they want to be higher priced, so they're not competing on low price. It's quite hard to get that velocity, because you don't really rank for the keywords, because your conversion rates are a lot lower, because you're more of a premium product. And so obviously the really long tail, you can rank high, but the high volume search terms, it's difficult, because you haven't got the conversion rates of the lower priced products, and without the brand awareness, it's really difficult to grow. So we're expanding what we do now. I don't know if you want me to talk about this, or we've got more questions.
Absolutely. Keep
So we've actually launched a kind of a sister company, but it's not really public, called Brands Japan, and it's kind of a Japan facing website. So its goal is to work with Japanese either consumers or influencers or other things to kind of to grow, to have an option to grow awareness of our clients' brands in Japan. So we're looking to create a network of affiliates that we can tap into, and then to go with that, build a Shopify website so we can drive more. The affiliates could promote products, drive people to the Shopify website, get them on an email list, do email marketing, kind of grow the brand, and there'll be a natural overflow into Amazon off that. It's quite challenging with the current brands, because they will come to us only for Amazon. They're like, we're doing whatever 50 million in the US. Let's just on Amazon. Let's just go on Amazon Japan. It'll be easy. But they struggle, and they don't really know why they're struggling. Well, it's like, let's look at what you're doing in the US. You've got a strong social media presence. You've got a really big Shopify website. You're doing all this PR. You've got none of that in Japan. But it's quite hard to get them to do it for whatever reason. But any new clients that come to us, we're going to kind of offer this straight away and just say, look, we can try just Japan, but be warned, you might hit this plateau quite quickly, and we've got all these other options. So we're kind of moving into that, and we've done a bit of influencer marketing work. It's been quite good. We've done a bit of, with the recent client, just a little bit. We've got some press releases in Japan, and we saw a nice bump in branded search for a bit. So that's, we need to do it more consistently. We did some TikTok, user-generated content, put on TikTok, did some boosted posts on TikTok. Again, just looking at the brand impressions on Amazon, we saw that go up for these periods. So all these things, we know it works. We just need to do it consistently and a bigger. So that's kind of where we're moving. We're still Amazon Japan, so the point of sale is probably always going to be on Amazon, but we also want to grow the marketing off Amazon, because it obviously it helps. So that's kind of where the business is transitioning. And I suppose, to get back to your question about who's our perfect client, it's probably it used to be anyone obviously at the start, but now it's someone that's willing to either they've already got brand awareness. We've got a couple of brands that have been selling to retail in Japan for 10 years plus, and they're the ones that have grown the quickest, obviously.
Meaning they've been selling to Vendor Central.
No, well, they've been selling to a distributor, and they've been selling into retail stores in Japan.
Got it. They actually have a brick and mortar presence in
exactly,
Japan,
and then
the brand awareness point. Right?
Exactly. So we've launched them on Amazon, and straight away they go like that. Whereas other brands really struggle because they've got the.
This is really interesting, Neil. Actually, and I think you are very uniquely positioned to have a great perspective on this, which is, Japan isn't necessarily aware of your brands in other marketplaces, right?
Exactly.
It sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but I think you've really hit on something important, which is like, yeah, you could have a great presence in the US, but if you have no ground game in Japan, if you have no cultural awareness, if you have no social awareness from the Japan consumer, it's an uphill battle. Now, you guys have a lot of tools at your disposal, not only a team on the ground there, but also, your brand's Japan initiative. You had the affiliate marketing background, so you understand the groundswell that kind of has to happen in order to reach that, almost kind of that critical velocity, right? Where you're starting to get noticed and it's going to build on itself. You said, these brands that are coming in from the US and just want to like start on the platform right away. You said, they're not successful for whatever reason. Can we just like double click into that? Like, why do you think they're not, particularly successful, even though they've got, a great presence in the US or whatever it may be?
Yeah, well, just what I was saying. So normally the reviews come over. So they say, look, we're launching in Japan. These ASINs are our best sellers in the US. We've got 20,000 4.5-star reviews. Obviously, they're all in English. But Amazon might translate them, some of them anyway. But it's like, well, that's great, but you've got zero sales history in Japan, so you're starting from zero, and you're competing against these other sellers who've been selling for 5 years plus. They've got massive sales history for all these. So you've got no organic presence because you've got no sales. So you basically, I don't know, just maybe a handful of search terms. Say, oh, well, in the US, we get so many sales from these search terms. Okay, well, all we can do is obviously optimize your listing. You might get a couple of sales, but we're going to have to run ads aggressively. Mm-hmm. You're going to show up, but you're competing against everyone else. And like I say, most of them are slightly more expensive because we're not working with people that are a race to the bottom. We're kind of people that are more of a, they're established brand in their countries. But obviously in Japan, they're just, to a Japanese consumer, they're just another product listing on Amazon. And someone searches for whatever they search for, humidifier or something. They're just a product that looks very similar to lots of other Japanese brands and products.
This is what I was particularly curious about, Neil. Like, I wanted to hear if there was a difference in taste, or preference of the Japanese consumer relative to, maybe US or UK, right? Like, do you see certain products or design aesthetics or anything in particular? I'm just more curious about like, what's the ratio of Japanese native brands versus, kind of outsourced brands coming in? Obviously the US is a total hodgepodge of brands from all over the world. Is it the same in Japan? Do you see general, behavior being the same, or is there more of a preference?
A lot of the categories are a lot of mix. There's a lot of Chinese sellers in Japan, a lot of Japanese sellers, obviously not so many international sellers. But in terms of the designs of the products, I think if it's a good product that does well, it doesn't have to be. Obviously, there are certain categories, and things like the baby food, for example. There's a lot of Japanese brands, and I think Japanese consumers are wary. I think there was a big scandal not so long ago, so they're very wary of non-Japanese brands, and they've got
the same preference like for UK baby formula, for example. Yeah. It's healthier. There's stricter restrictions, better ingredients, right? So I imagine there's some of that. I'm also just, Japan has a bit of a reputation for really valuing quality and design. Do you see that holding true in the Amazon marketplace, or do you still see like the low price points can win, or the low price option can win, but maybe if you're outsourcing and you have these additional fee structures, like it's your cost structures, it's just not as feasible?
Yeah, well, there's still what you say is right, but there's still a definite, the cheapest products generally get most of the sales. We've got, without naming the client, we've got a sort of a bed linen company, a luxury one, so they're high end. They say, hotel quality, etc., etc. They're about 3 or 4 times more expensive than the bestsellers.
Right.
So for a pillowcase, for example, the bestsellers are very cheap, and we just pulled the search query performance data for all of the markets. I say, look, in any other markets, we've launched in Germany, and our sales are a lot better than they are in Japan.
Mhm.
We haven't got a website, we're not doing social media and things in Germany. What's the difference? So I pulled all the data, and basically the price point they're selling at in Japan is similar to the other markets. So they're not charging more in Japan, well, a little bit more, but not too much. But actually, the competitors for this brand seem to be a lot cheaper in Japan. So the difference between the two. So I think in Germany it was about 50% more expensive they were, but in Japan they were 200 or 300% more expensive. So that was the problem. And something else that's really interesting is the depth of the long tail seems to be a lot smaller in Japan. So for them, I think the term pillowcase, for example, for that product, 80% of the purchase volume was going through that one search term.
Yeah.
And then the other variations, it was just either 20%. Whereas in Germany and the UK and the US and Australia, because I looked at all those markets, I think the top search term was a longer tail one, maybe the pillowcase plus the dimensions. And I think in Germany there was maybe 10 search terms before just the term pillowcase by itself. And I think each one had, I think the top search term only had 20% of the purchase, and the next one had 10% of the purchases. So it wasn't just, so in Japan, you have to compete on a very short, high volume search term to do well. Whereas in other markets, I think the depth, long tail is a lot more.
Do you find from a competitive landscape standpoint, Neil, is there an equivalent amount of selection on Japan? Is it a little bit more precise of a selection on Japan just because of some of those barriers that you described? Like, what's the competitive landscape on Japan relative to the other marketplaces as far as you've seen it?
So what was that? What was the competitive landscape?
Yeah, as far as for the bed linens, like good example, right? If you were going to sell that in Germany or the US, how many, these like really actually valid competitors are out there versus in Japan? Are we talking same number of competitor listings? Are we talking a subset of those listings?
But I don't really know the other markets so much because I'm not really digging into them so much. But I think just by doing these comparisons, and obviously I've done the search terms in the different markets to see what to show up, it seems similar, the number of competitors.
Yeah.
But there are other variations as well. And obviously this is why you need to be in the market. And this is what the Japan guys do beforehand. There's different products. So obviously you've got futons and things and the different kinds of beds in Japan compared to in other markets as well. Obviously the sleep on, I don't know if you know, they've got these kind of futon sets where you've got the almost like this mattress that folds up and goes down. It comes with a cover and something else.
Yep.
And sometimes sometimes someone searches for a futon set and they buy our clients' products. And sometimes they don't, but then we're bidding more. So you've got to understand the market. And also things like in other markets, the term duvet sets, it's still a duvet set. So you've got the pillowcases, sheets, and duvet covers. It's a big set. And it's a high priced product. But they're just struggling because in Japan, they don't really sell sets. The term duvet sets is very low search volume. And it's just someone searches for a duvet cover and they just want the cover. Whereas in the UK, when someone rarely just buys a duvet cover, they normally buy a whole set. It seems to be different. So these differences, which we unfortunately didn't catch until they'd launched. But they make sales, but the number of search terms they show up for is a lot limited. So the search volume is less for them. And if they want to make big sales, they've got to compete on the term duvet cover. But obviously the conversion rates are low because most people just want
they don't want the extra. Yeah. I mean, and I think this is just such a good example, a very specific one of, consumer behavior differences, right? And preference differences that, you really aren't going to know or recognize or be able to just actually kind of identify if you're not in there and really like a specialist in the Japanese marketplace. I think that's just something you guys do really well at Rising Sun is be sensitive to the nuances of the consumer behavior across those categories. So, just to put a finer point on it, Neil, and kind of wrap the client side, can you just give me that, like, who is like your ideal customer that you know is going to have a good chance of being successful in Japan versus maybe somebody that's not? Like, what's kind of the razor that says, hey, if you've got kind of these qualities, like Japan maybe isn't for you, or maybe it's not a good fit for us, Rising Sun, just in the way that we engage with our clients.
Yeah, so I suppose there's two. One is, like I said before, if someone's either already got some brand awareness in Japan to start with that we can build on, they're a good one. But then the other one is if someone's coming into Japan and they're willing to invest to grow the brand with the off Amazon stuff, and again, they're a good client for us. Or they're probably the best ones. The best clients for us personally are brands that are already launched in Japan, but and have inventory and the listings are set up. Whether they're good or not, that's a different question. But they aren't doing very well because they're they've got a pain point, and we're the kind of solution to that. So that they're our best clients in terms of ease of onboarding and getting started quickly, because they've got a real pain point, need to get going. But in terms of clients,
because it's a lot of work up front to get onboarded onto Amazon Japan and make sure you got it there.
So I suppose this leads on to other things that we do. So because we've been doing it for so long, 2016 it was when we launched. We've got a lot of contacts in Japan. We've got a really good logistics partner who it's an unofficial partnership with it's actually a British guy who lives out there, and we don't get any kickback from him, but I know he does a good job. So when anyone comes to us and say, look, we want to, we're a UK company, we want to start selling in Japan, I can give them a bit of background about how the shipping works, how the customs work, and what paperwork you need. But I normally just pass it on to these guys, and then so we can support that. And we can, store this stuff in warehouses in Japan, and then we can work with them to get into Amazon. So that's another kind of, we don't offer that person. We can act as a middleman, but that's kind of a bit something I don't really want to do because it's just extra admin. So we can support brands from the very start to get the products into Japan by putting them in touch with this logistics company, because there are a few issues. But I'll give you some background in case people are interested. You don't have to.
Just to say, this is like a really good thing for potential clients to hear, is that you have logistics support. I think like not a lot of agencies are going to offer this. They'll focus more on the performance side of things, right? But if you can't get, the blocking and tackling done from a supply chain standpoint, you're really never going to be. We all know, like, inventory is the very first and foremost requirement of being successful on Amazon, right? So if we can't get that in place, like, Japan's never going to take off ever, regardless of whatever else we do, right? So I think it's really important for people to know you guys have that logistics support, and some of those, like I said, boots on the ground, in Japan to be able to troubleshoot some of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And just quickly, because obviously if you sell in Europe, you have to be VAT registered in all the countries. You don't in Japan. They've got something called Japanese consumption tax, but you don't have to be registered for that as an international company. But the difference is the government doesn't really get they don't get this tax from international brands. So US brands selling on Amazon, so you don't need a Japanese registered company, you don't need to be tax registered, but they get their tax payment up front. So basically when you import your goods into Japan,
it's like a duty.
You have to have you don't have to, but it's good to have your Amazon listings set up beforehand, and they use your selling price on Amazon and they charge you 10% of that. Don't
give away any like hacks that you give your clients, right?
No. I've got no hacks. I'm just saying this is great. How it works. Because a lot of people have questions, just questions like that. Do we need to be VAT registered in Japan? Do we need to have a Japanese office in Japan? So you don't need any of that. But then, but the process is quite complicated. So yeah, if anyone is interested,
I can imagine it is. Anybody who has dealt with VAT or any kind of foreign, importing knows that it's different country to country, and those things can be a real blocker, if you're trying to get set up. So I think obviously you guys have, been through that many, many times and are able to walk people through that. And that's a huge advantage of working with you and the team. Neil, you guys cover such a wide kind of spectrum of services here, depending on where the brand is at in their maturity cycle, whether they're established or already distributed or, maybe just getting started. How do you contract for that? Like, what does a typical engagement actually look like with your clients? Is it like a fixed fee arrangement? Do you do some kind of percentage? Like, how do you like to engage to cover all of those things that you guys do?
This is a difficult thing, and
Yes, yes.
a lot of conversations. So when we started out, obviously we had no experience, no clients, so we always started on a very good agreement for the client. So it was basically a percentage of revenue at the start with a very small retainer, because when basically, obviously the thing is, if we do the work, you grow, we both benefit. But there's been a lot of problems with that. It relies
there's
on
a lot of work up front, a lot of hours invested up
exactly.
front, and it's no guarantee that it's going to get recovered. I know that's just a constant kind of conflict for you to figure out.
So that's how we used to work. We've actually got a couple of clients still on that, because a good thing is some of our clients have been with us for 4 or 5 years. So, like what we do. But the problem is they're on some old deals. And another, I think the mindset as well of the clients are back to the ideal client. I think sometimes if they're not committed financially because they're just on a percentage of sales, so they can be a bit more lax on inventory management, or things need to be done. Like, like we said, we need to refresh all your images, for this reason, it'll cost this much to do it. And they're like, shouldn't you do that because if sales go up? So
that's not a great alignment in some cases, which is interesting. You could make the case for the other side too, but I see how, in those situations, like that's actually kind of misaligned.
And I've spoken to you a lot in the past about, we've been going through the reporting and the data with the MixShift and saying, the sales have dropped out like that. Can we dig into it? And it nearly always comes down to a key ace and going out of stock. So that's, and if they're not, if financially they're not really in it, you're kind of like, they're like, our sales have gone down, we're not happy, but they just end up paying us less money, and we end up doing more work now, only because we normally dig into the data. We're doing more and more analysis to understand why things have gone wrong and what can we do. And
you almost need like a little rider in the agreements just to like maintain a certain inventory level. That should almost be, that's almost like the trade-off, for that to work. So you've seen it all now. You've got different kinds of contracts. Where are you guys kind of at now, or what's kind of the preferential way?
So now it's a fixed monthly fee, but it's tiered depending on, and we base it on how on your ad spend, because we've got a lot of costs that are linked with ad spend, like your kind of software. We've got other software.
Everything kind of scales with that.
So the more they spend on ads, the more our fees go up. And obviously, the more they spend on ads means we can do more work, and we have to do more work to manage it. So
they're probably making more, right? You're growing, and those things
exactly
go hand in hand.
So that's where we are now. It's a fixed monthly fee, but it's tiered depending on how much you spend on ads. But then that's just sorry.
I imagine, that this covers kind of the whole spectrum of what you guys do. Are there different packages within that monthly fee?
So that monthly fee covers kind of the general Seller Central, and we do vendor as well, whatever it is, management and the ads. And then that does involve, we do refresh the content and, for new keywords or new areas, and we do A/B testing of some of the images or text. We do that as part of it as well. But if you want to do the kind of brand building off Amazon stuff, so if we're going to build them a Shopify store, if we're going to start researching, finding and networking with affiliates or influencers to that's a separate, and that's kind of a custom fee depending on how much you want to do.
Got it. Yep. So there's kind of like the core Seller Central or Vendor Central management, and then there's some of the ancillary services that are scoped separately. Some of the affiliate or brand building work that might happen outside of the platform, which maybe even the logistics support as well. I would assume that maybe fall under some of those umbrellas too.
But normally, to be fair, we normally just pass it on to
just pass it to your guy. Makes sense.
And we're CC'd on emails, and I chip in when I need to. But
you're kind of the steel thread with that relationship. And understood. So I mean, given all those different kind of tools in the tool belt that you guys can deploy to help a brand get going in Japan, I imagine you kind of have a diverse team. I know you're the single founder now. I know John's working on some other things at this point. But what is the team makeup, Neil, and how does that, help shape kind of your perspective on services?
Well, we're still we're still quite a small team, and we've only got a small pool. We're actually, it's recently, maybe the last year, we've been kind of shifting our focus. So we've actually, a few of our clients that have been around for a long time, we've had like open, honest discussions with them. Go, look, we're kind of plateaued. We need to do basically the off Amazon stuff to grow you. You know, are you going to do it? Yes or no? And then we kind of part of companies who actually our number of clients has dropped a bit, but the ones we've got are actually more ambitious clients, and we're looking to build on. So we've got a small team. There's 6 of us. There's only 6 of us.
Crack team. That's a crack team. You got to have your rock stars, right?
Yeah, exactly. And people, they've been with us a long time. So the Japan people have been with us a long time. They're all bilingual. And basically, we've got a main lady that's been with us for 3 years, and we call her the chief kind of editor, kind of main person that oversees all the content. If we need to do some market research, she kind of oversees that. Then we've got some other people that help with the kind of ad management, kind of the keyword research, kind of the admin kind of stuff. Then we've also got a few not kind of full-time people in the business, but a few kind of freelancers in Japan that we can tap into if needed. So we've got people that can make unboxing videos, for example. We can send them a product and they can create unboxing videos and things like that. And then, but they're not full-time people. They're just people we can turn to if we need to. Yep, that's all.
Yeah, I think big advantage, right? Just having people actually, in Japan and feeling that location and, seeing what's going on around there. Because there's some timing things too, like Prime Day looks different in Japan every year, right? It looks different than the US. So yeah, I mean, and, as far as Rising Sun goes, you guys have been at it for, quite some time now. What's the end game for you for Rising Sun? Is this a lifestyle business? Is this something you'd like to get acquired? Do you have, are you trying to scale to a certain size? Like, where do you guys want to be? What's your sweet spot?
Yeah, well, when we founded it, it was always build it to be acquired. That was always the goal. But we had these big, ambitious plans of how myself and John, who were the founders, we're going to, replace ourselves within X number of years. There's going to be people in all these management roles, but it hasn't worked out like that. I'm still the main guy. I'm still the one that does most of the work. But I enjoy it, because I was doing Amazon before.
Yeah,
I got into agency. But yeah, I do want to grow. I think this next stage is key for us, where we're trying to get brands that are more ambitious, that really do. They don't just want to be Amazon products selling on Amazon. They want to be brands in Japan, growing their brand in Japan.
Yeah.
And I think if we do that, then that's going to be it. And then and also what we're trying to do with this Brands Japan sister company, we want to kind of build our own digital assets. We want to build, big email list of Japanese consumers that we're marketing. So again,
like a funnel almost. Yeah,
exactly. I have our own social profiles, our own TikTok account, our own. So if a new brand joins us on Amazon, we can say, okay, we can tap into our 10,000 email list database of consumers that we know buy international or non-Japanese.
It's like a brand accelerator for Japan entry.
Exactly. And I think so. Build that up. We've started but slow. Build up. Like I said, our big database of engaged influencers and affiliates, again, that we can just tap into if we need to. And again, so if we do come to be acquired, you're not just acquiring an Amazon agency. You are acquiring an agency in the team, but you're also acquiring this big email list, this big network of affiliates, this big, these kind of assets so rolled up. So that's kind of the goal. So yeah, one is get more ambitious clients into Amazon, but not just Amazon, as well as there's Rakuten, who's a big online platform at the same size. So do that as well. And we're just working with one of our clients at the moment to get them on there. So we're going to hopefully get experience with that. It's always difficult because we don't have experience. So we can't really show case studies. We're saying we could definitely do it. We've got a good team, but until you actually do it, it's quite hard to get people to buy in.
Probably some differences, but I tend to believe that Amazon's kind of the elephant in the room in regard to just the model and how the platform works. And I think there's certainly nuances across those platforms and channels, but a lot of similarities too. I think exactly. The playbook is not so dissimilar. Exactly.
You set your listings up, set your store up. You've got the pay-per-click ads. It's kind of, but definitely if we need to do that. I think the goal is for each client to have an Amazon presence, a Rakuten presence, because they're equal size, their own Shopify website, then do all the brand building, and then speaking to the Japan team, they're saying Sometimes they go to Rakuten to buy. Sometimes they go to Amazon. Sometimes they compare the prices.
A good insight from your folks, local, right?
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that, I would assume, different price points, different delivery dates, different selection, things like that.
And just the platforms and Rakuten's been around. That used to almost be the whole market, and it's just relatively recently that Amazon's come in and taken the market share. And so people are in there, and Rakuten's got this. They own lots of things. I think it's in the US, some things, but in Japan they've got.
Well, I think I see him on the Golden State Warriors jerseys. They're huge, but the US consumer isn't particularly aware. Maybe a little bit more on the West Coast, I would guess.
But in Japan, they've got banking, they've got credit cards, they've got mobile phones, they've got the online store. And if you use one of the services, you gain what they call points, which is like cash back. You basically earn points for all these different things, and you can spend them or redeem them on.
Which is kind of where Amazon lacks. And in fact, we've seen this in other kind of niche sites where they have really good loyalty programs, and they start to really kind of like eat away at some of the consumers that maybe were like category dependent on Amazon. I could see that as like, a bit of an advantage for something like a Rakuten for sure.
Mm-hmm. But Amazon is growing, and Amazon is taking market share a bit, but people are still loyal to the other platforms.
And Neil, so it sounds like you guys have some pretty big ambitions, for where you want to do. I really love just that kind of comprehensive approach to helping a brand grow in Japan. Having that kind of three-legged stool of like, got to have your D2C, you got to have actually like a physical like brick and mortar presence and some distribution, and then you got to figure out like the online e-com to have each of those spots covered. In getting to this point for Rising Sun, you guys have seen it all now. You've been around for the game for quite some time. What has really helped you get to this size, and maybe what do you think is going to help you get to the next size, as far as just maybe it's different things that you guys need to do? You talked about delegating or replacing yourself. Like, if you were going to give advice to another agency that's maybe just getting started, what would you tell them maybe to avoid, or maybe like do right away?
I think we tried to rush into the delegation too early. We hired some people, paid them too much money to try and take stuff off our plates, and then we found we didn't actually have enough work to delegate out fully. We had the dream of, we wanted to sit back, and not do much. Maybe
you're not on the beach yet somewhere.
Exactly. No, I'm not on the beach, no. but then, we found that I wasn't really helping, and we were almost managing these people we had brought in to take workload off us, and we're trying to find work for them to do. So we probably should have, I don't know what we would have done with the cash, but kept the cash in and done the work ourselves, and we could have done other things. Like now, for example, now I know what I need a lot more. I know we need, I want an internal AI person, because obviously AI is big, to really help us with, well, the content creation, images, video, but also the processes and streamlining things. And well, I'm sure you guys have got a lot of ideas for it, but I don't, but even with the reporting, I'm sure hopefully you'll build this at some point. With the reporting, I would love if we had someone internal, I could pull all the data in. I don't know, almost do a lot of my job before I've actually looked at the report. Because now I go in, I look at the reports, look at the data.
It's on the way, Neil. Don't worry. 2.0.
I know it would be. But things like that, and just have an internal person whose job it is to do that. And again, with clients, we can say, okay, we're gonna create and manage your social media accounts in Japan. We're gonna pump out loads of content. We'll have someone that can generate lots of video, lots of images, and do well. Yes, there's
so much blue sky there, and I think tools are certainly racing to fill the space. There's always going to be some nuance there, and you guys will probably see this as you start to adopt these tools or try some processes. Japan's going to have its own kind of flavor of that, right? Like, there's certain things that you got to accommodate for. I do think the language translation is becoming really, really good, but the specific knowledge, and I think this is something we talk about a lot in context of AI, is you still have to have specific knowledge of the thing you're building or the thing you're operating in. In this case, it's the Japan marketplace. So certainly you can just go ahead and do kind of basic translations into Japan, but the question is whether or not that's going to resonate with the Japanese consumer, right?
Mhm.
And the only way you're going to know that is if you are a Japanese consumer and you're actually there, right? Which you have those folks on your team. And I think that's a really important point as we talk about like all this AI adoption and all these things, like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like if you have no differentiation, if you have no specific knowledge of the thing you're solving, you're going to end up having kind of the cookie cutter response. I liken this a lot to almost like the Shopify templates or like a Wix or these other website builders. You saw this trend over the last like 6 years where all of a sudden all the websites look the same, right? And why? Because all the templates were the same and all the themes were the same. And, and so it was actually getting harder to differentiate yourself. And I think that's actually the nuance that's going to be really interesting to see as people adopt these AI tools is how do you continue to actually stay different? Because all things held equal, is if everybody's following the same playbook, where's the alpha, right? Like where is the advantage of being able to outperform? And I think it is really comes back to like specific knowledge and a unique perspective, which you guys certainly.
In Japan, I think the translations are good, but they're not as good as other markets. There's 3 different alphabets. I'm not a Japanese speaking expert, which is why I've got the Japanese guys. There's 3 different alphabets. The spacing. Sometimes you've got no spaces. You can have a huge sentence with no spaces in it, or you can have spaces, or you can have double spaces.
You don't want to look like a foreign listing, right? Like you want to look local, in all those ways. Yeah.
And different ways of saying, because there's some products, like for example, I'm probably getting this wrong, but obviously Japanese people don't use forks. So if you use the word fork in a knife and fork, if that's not a Japanese word because that product didn't exist. So they almost have to phonetically say it, and they've got one of the alphabets is for how you say non-Japanese products, and then so that's all different. And we did this. We had a client recently that had a big ebook. And they just used AI to translate it. And they went, "Oh, can you check it through?" So I gave it to Shiori, and she went, "Oh, it would have been easier if I just translated it myself."
Literally,
and just as much time changing it all. And then they had an AI voiceover for these videos, and that did AI voiceovers. And again, it sounded Japanese to me, but then the team listened to it. They were saying, "Oh, no, that doesn't sound right. Oh, that's not how we say it." So again, we had to edit the scripts a couple of times so they said it right. And it's
so the time and where you spend your time and attention has shifted from the original writing, but now it's actually the editing and the really the QA. It's the quality assurance that it's actually legitimate. And I think this translates, this applies to listings and metadata, and it applies to images, and it applies to all the things that make up a great listing and a great experience on Amazon. So Neil, anything I didn't ask you that I should have, or that was burning in your mind to chat about today?
No, I think
time flew, didn't it? We're already almost up on an hour.
I think people who watches this will probably get an understanding of what we do. And
I think if anybody stumbles on this, Neil, I think you've done a great job of just kind of explaining, where Rising Sun fits in the world. I think you guys have such a cool, unique approach, especially really trying to surround the brand and help them be successful in Japan, specifically talking to that 3-legged stool of having the D2C site and having a brick and mortar presence and having, your distribution and your logistics figured out in
maybe they don't have to have a brick and mortar presence. That helps. But even if they're just digital, people have got to know about you.
There's somewhere else to discover the brand, right?
Because it helps with the branded search, obviously, but then even if it's a generic search term, if you show up in the search results, they say, "Oh yeah, I know that brand from somewhere," then your conversion rates are going to be a lot higher than they were if you just. I think you just got to remember, no matter how big you are in your home market, when you come to Japan, it doesn't matter. You're basically nobody. Nobody's heard of you.
Yeah, I think that's just such a good thing for especially US and maybe even EU brands to hear as well. And it really takes a skilled operator with, folks on the ground there to help penetrate that market, because it's not as simple as setting up listings and going. I mean, I think that's a great takeaway for people, to hear from you specifically. So Neil, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I think Rising Sun has a really, really cool approach. If anybody's looking to get into Japan, you would be the team I would refer them to. I really don't know of many others that are doing it the way you guys are doing it. I know of some Japanese-based agencies, but not in this way, right? And I think you create such a great bridge for brands coming from the EU and the UK and the US and all over Europe and other places to have a chance at success in Japan, which is a great market. Certainly, getting more and more competitive every day, but the Japanese consumer has a lot of good things going for them too, which I think is something to keep in mind as brands look at other marketplaces to expand to.
Yeah, I suppose one thing, obviously we know each other through MixShift. I don't know if you wanted to ask me how I use it or what I think is good about it.
Yeah, it's not about. It's not about us. It's certainly you can tell the world here. Why MixShift? Like, what do you use it for? What was the kind of problem it solved for you?
Well, basically, we found you in the first place because I think when you started, there was either nobody or very few people building these reporting tools. We wanted it for reporting basically because we would spend a lot of time, but now we use it for a lot. We use something. There's the budget
balance.
Or the kind of the I can't remember what you call it.
The bridge analysis.
No, the way you predict how much budget you're spending and where it's going to be at the end of the month.
The pacing,
That's the pacing. That we use that quite often. That's quite useful just to check in. The bridge analyses are low. We shouldn't, and I think you're going to address this. We normally use it when things go wrong.
Yep.
But it should be used. It should be used.
It's a great troubleshooter, but we want to make it proactive.
And now a new thing that every morning the first thing I do is I check in on the
anomaly detection.
Yeah, that's what we check in. Just have a quick check, make sure everything's all right.
Good to hear.
The other main thing, and obviously then just the reports, because checking on the main reports that we share with the clients, and each month we use them. Like I said, I basically put on my screen, do a shared screen with Loom, and just talk through the reports and point out all the main things, and then share the video. So that's what we use. That's what you use.
We really want to help facilitate that storytelling, the narrative. We want to integrate some of the bridge stuff. We basically want to have the reports explain performance without you having to go in there and really dissect, like, okay, why were we down here? Like, we'd love to be able to service, for example, an out of stock before it ever happened, or maybe we can even get predictive about it, which are things that we're looking at.
That'd be cool. So so say sales were down 30% in July compared to June, then you can see the obvious things. So you got the headaches. Your ad spend was down, or your ad sales were down. You can see the obvious things.
Yep.
But it'd be quite cool if it went, here's what we think are the main reasons. This ASIN went out of stock on the 16th.
Can we pinpoint the ASIN? Can we pinpoint the campaign? Can we actually mathematically attribute those things?
And you can say this ASIN directly contributed to X number of sales, but also in the ads, it contributed to other SKU sales of this much. So this being out of stock had a huge. So that would be cool.
Totally. You got it. Yeah, we're but we've been working together for a long time, so we think in a lot of the same lines. But Neil, I think you've hit on these things, and then the reason we focus on the reporting is because no matter which marketplace you're in, you still have to tell the story and be able to communicate the value and the things that you've done for your client on a regular basis. And
I know we've spent a long time here, but we've actually we've actually had a couple of clients that were using a Japanese agency. But the communication was hard. Come to us, and because obviously I'm English and I can speak to them. That's one of our unique selling points.
Great.
It's a bit random how an English guy is doing Amazon Japan, but for the communication,
the best of both worlds.
So they come to us for the communication, and obviously we do the reports, and obviously that's night and day of what they were getting with the Japan, where they were getting no updates, they didn't know what was going on, language was a problem, but now we can do this stuff, all these reports. So that's
really probably understated advantage, in just being able to have good conversations. And I think that's where a lot of the trust gets built, with the client is and if it's hard to communicate with each other, even if the work is good, it's really hard just to know what's going on and be able to build that relationship over time, which I know you guys do a really good job with, having some clients that have been around for a very long time with you, at this point. So we'll wrap there, Neil. Thank you so much for taking the time today. It's always awesome to chat with you. I think you guys got some great things coming, and I learned some things about what you guys are working on even today, including the PhD in biomedical engineering, which is really cool. I'm sure has its play in different ways. So I'll end the recording here, Neil, and I'll say goodbye afterward. But thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Sam. Thanks.